Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Health University, where today we're going to talk about something that everybody necessarily wants to hear, and it is about making sure that we've got a blueprint, a maternal physiological hormonal blueprint that is going to sustain us through pregnancy and the next evolution of life. Perimenopause, it's inevitable. And so I'm delighted to have with me Emily Sadri, who's going to share with us her own personal story, as well as share with us how she's been able to implement tools and techniques and therapies to help women in her and people in her field enjoy a healthier preparation for pregnancy, a healthier pregnancy, and a healthier perimenopause when that time comes. So, Emily, welcome. Thank you so much for joining today. I'm going to invite you to share with me and the listening audience your bio, your background, and then we'll launch into some Q&A.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for having me, Susan. It's such a pleasure to be here and be chatting with you and all of the mothers or mothers to be, people who have mothering on their heart. It's certainly an area that I've felt called to for a very long time. My background actually is that I have an undergraduate degree in musical theater.
Oh, wow.
And it was somewhere in the middle of undergrad on a summer, I was reading The Red Tent by Anita Diamant. You probably know the book. It's a classic.
Love that story.
So beautiful. And it was sort of one of those things I picked up and didn't know what I was getting myself into. But halfway through the book, I had this fleeting thought, if I wasn't going to be like a famous Broadway star, which was like my identity at the time, I would probably be a midwife. Like I felt it in my bones. I felt like this is who I am, and it just, the thought passed through and I went on my merry way and I graduated from school and I, did a little bit of acting and performing but really I'm such a land sign. I'm such a Virgo, and like the nomadic lifestyle and the irregularity of a performing artist, this wasn't like a match for me. And so one of the jobs that I was doing as my survival career was teaching music to moms and babies. And I actually taught at a place that was also doing childbirth education. And so I would teach my older babies and then the younger ones all the way down to like 4 months old with their brand new, very fragile mothers in this, walk-up building in Chelsea in Manhattan. And then right after my class, all the pregnant ladies would roll in. And I just felt this like overwhelming sense of alignment and purpose in working with these women who were on their journey of matrescence, really, which I love that term, like becoming a mother, because it's so much more than what's happening physiologically, but it's really this whole top to bottom experience. And sometime in that winter when I was teaching, I just registered for nursing school. It was like, I'm going to be a midwife. I just know that's what I'm going to do. And I was all set to begin classes before I even informed anyone in my life that that's what I was doing.
But
so
I love it.
Fast forward several years, I got my graduate degree in midwifery and women's health. So I'm a dual board certified as a women's health nurse practitioner and midwife from the University of Pennsylvania. And throughout this time, beginning of school, I had my first baby. I had a home birth. I went on to have my second baby right at the very end of school. And then we moved to our current location in the Midwest for my husband's job. And I started my first job as a midwife with 2 little kids under the age of 4.
Wow.
And, I had it in my head that, well, I'm a high achiever. And so, of course, like, I think high achievers have a tendency to sometimes filter their goals based on what everyone is telling them is like what you're supposed to do. And there's definitely this dogma in the midwifery world of like, this is your calling, and therefore it's also your responsibility to go out there and be in the trenches and like fight the good fight for women in the labor space and in woman space and postpartum and all the things. But that like, if I wasn't going to be there, like the system will crumble. Like it's up to me to take on the call and like protect women. Yes.
In the trenches. Yeah.
Totally.
Whereas there's also the other adage, physician, heal thyself.
100%. No. And that was not something, my professors in midwifery school, God bless them, I love all of them, were all in midlife. We're all, in burnout. But they were all fiercely passionate. And I think I was so attracted to that because I related to that I just did what any good student was going to do. And I didn't really think about the fact that I had two little kids under the age of 4, a husband with a full-time job as a physician who was extremely busy. And here I am, I stepped into the best midwifery position in my mind because I could practice most authentically, right? We were a very small practice. We took 24-hour call. We had full control over our patients. We had a lot of physiologic birth, a very low intervention rate. It was a dream. And it was also like a dream that crushed me. And I got pregnant with my third baby right as I began that job. And ended up diabetic in that pregnancy and totally burnt out. And, you know, I was staying up all night helping women have their babies. And, you know, I had a normal, you know, birth at home, just like my other ones. And I sort of, I think you kind of like, we do this thing in America because we're forced to go back to work so early, really well before our physiology would support us to do so. And so we kind of have to like dissect our heart from our head, and you have to compartmentalize it. Like it's just too painful.
Yeah.
And I think I did that really profoundly after my third baby was born, so that I could, you know, go back. I think I even squeezed it out to 14 weeks, and which was, you know, there were words said about that. And at the year mark postpartum, after that baby was born, it was Christmas time, and my whole family got hit with the flu. It was a few years before COVID. It was like a very bad flu year. I don't know if you remember that, but it was like, there was this one year where the flu was like a horrible, and we all got it. And everybody recovered, and I kind of recovered, you know, and then I went back to work in January, but just, it was at a point where I was so ill that whole month, but I was so disconnected from how I really felt, right? So focused on raising my 3 children, you know, being the midwife I wanted to be. I mean, forget about the marriage. That was like the last thing on the priority list at the time, which I'm, you know, we're making up for now. And a physician pulled me aside in the clinic and said, "You don't look so good." And again, it's like 4 weeks after I had the flu. She pulled me into a room, took my temperature. I had a fever. And I had full-blown pneumonia, you know, just walking around. And I was like, I'll go home, but let me just go put this IUD in really quick. Crazy. Just like insane. And it was a real wake-up call. Yeah, I was so conditioned. And it was a wake-up call for me of like, and the worst part, then the most profound memory I have about all this was having to pick up the phone and call my boss on my way home and say, like, I got to be out for at least a week. Like, and it was a physician within our own team that was saying to me, like, I needed to take the rest, but I felt so much like I was letting her down by stepping away. And, you know, after that moment, I really started to evaluate all the ways that how could I adapt my life so that that didn't have to be like this. Like, and I, you know, had been studying functional medicine, but I really dove in at that time. I started working with a practitioner myself, and really like, because I think we have this issue, right? As practitioners, like, we can just do it ourselves. We don't need someone to hold our hand, but there's so much more involved in that provider and patient relationship than just information, right? It's a relationship, it's a journey, it's a holding, right? And I did so much holding of space for so many women day in and day out in that period of my life, but I wasn't providing it for myself.
Well, we can't. And we just can't provide it. I mean, it is, as human beings, we are not intended to be everything to all beings, especially to ourselves. We're relational, we're reliant.
Yeah. Totally. And that, like, no one taught me that. You know, like, I went to the best school in the country. It's not the American way, right? Definitely not. And you know, I changed my position in that time period. And I didn't know what was going to come next for me, but I knew that I had to start to put everything through a lens of, is it good for me, my body, and my family? And that all decisions had to go through that lens at that point in life. And I think that, which someone had kind of coached me on that before I had my first baby, and said, like, one of the hardest things about this transition is that you haven't been orienting yourself through this lens. And I think probably for a lot of your population as well, like, their whole lens is focused on getting pregnant. And then it's like, there's this whole other piece, right? This life piece that we're sort of forgetting about, that we need to prepare for, that happens on the other side. You know, and for me, it was like, I think we also have this thing in America where we go, just need to get to that maternity leave. Then I'm going to get like the rest that I've been craving, right? To me, it was like, you know that you're not well when you're like, you kind of have little fleeting fantasies of like getting hit by a car so that you can just like spend a week in the hospital, you know, because you're
Mhm.
that tired on the inside.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I see it all the time where, women mostly because that's my population, they're so exhausted and exhausted through the IVF process as well. They're trying to have a career, manage their teams, manage home. Sometimes home also includes, babies at home. They're wanting to expand their family. And they just, I mean, really their time on the acupuncture treatment table is like a little oasis, but it's not enough. It's not because it's not going to change the paradigm, as you say, the blueprint that is needed in order to grow a healthy baby, grow a healthy family. So
100%. No,
yeah,
I mean, and it's like you can't recover from decades of lack of rest with 1 hour on trust me, I've tried.
exactly.
I have tried. If I could, like, I would be so much further along now. But I think part of it is like this, we have this sort of poor relationship with time. Like there's this, urgency around things. And, I'm sure that this is something that comes up for your sort of audience so much is that like it has to happen immediately. And so urgency can be healthy in that if it helps you to be proactive and kind of make really discerning, healthful choices that are more in alignment, but it's not healthy if it's keeping you in a state of persistent upregulation of your nervous system, of really feeling out of sync with sort of what nature is delivering to you in a timely fashion, right? And I think what I learned is that there's really no justification, no matter what anybody tells you, for like running yourself into the ground. Like you don't get a medal. I mean, if anything, I ended up feeling more empty after all of those years than I ever could have imagined. Like I worked so hard to get to that moment where I was finally doing my soul's work and my passion, but I was persistently for almost 5 years doing it at the expense of my physical well-being and my familial well-being.
Mhm.
And, at the end of the day, when you're leaving this world, like no one is gonna lay there and say, like, I wish I had grown my business more. I wish I had like moved up in my company more, right? It's like the things that impress upon our hearts are like the moments when we can slow down and be really in communion with the people who are important to us and who are around us. And for me, the only way I was going to accomplish that and feel whole was if I was sleeping at nighttime.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so I got pregnant with my fourth baby.
Wow.
I kept going, Susan, even after number 3 and pneumonia and all the things. I really wanted that fourth
You're really
baby.
telling us a story and what not to do.
Totally, cautionary tale. And that baby, and I was pregnant during COVID.
Mm,
And because I was of a certain age at that point, I was almost 40 years old with my fourth pregnancy. I had a history of diabetes, and so I was already, monitoring my blood sugars at the time. Um, I, with the support of my team, stayed home and did only virtual visits with people for a period of time at the beginning of COVID when there was a lot of confusion about the risks.
mhm,
And I was sleeping at night and I realized like how much I loved caring for people, and it was okay to put aside the being like in the trenches for a little while.
mhm. Well, if I
And so
may, I just want to
mhm.
challenge that whole concept that caring for people means being in the trenches. I'm going to purport that all of us, each of us can care for people more fully, more profoundly, and have a bigger impact when we are not, working with just, a little bit of fuel in our tank, but we're working from being fully resourced.
Oh, 100%. And my impact is so much bigger now
Yeah.
that I've stepped back and, changed the focus of my practice. And I really feel like I still midwife women, but I midwife them in a very different way and through a different life phase.
Mhm.
And I can do it now from such a clearer, more wholehearted way.
Mhm.
And in a way that's not at an expense of my own well-being. And I'm not perfect. Like it is a constant barometer for me. And there are weeks when I'm failing at it. And my husband will look at me and say, I can tell that your brain is like not slowing down and not stopping, because if you're out there, and I know I can see you high achievers out there. I know you're there. We tend to always be, thinking about how we can make something better, what we can do next. And it's so important to have tools to stop that, to slow that down. And it's very challenging, especially if you're a highly sensitive person, to not be a victim to kind of the hyperstimulation that we're meeting from all over the place. So, I'm sure that you talk about this all the time, but just, the simple routines of like turning off your laptop at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m., turning off your phone. Those are things I didn't have the luxury of doing when I was a midwife, because I was essentially always on call.
On call, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Those things. And I would say that like, so that whole piece has to go along with, if you want to be a person that's going to do all the things, first of all, everyone's capacity is going to be different, right? Like we're all just different humans, different souls, different traumas, different everything. So just because someone else's system, you can't all be like, whatever. We're not all going to be Michelle Obama, like, and do a million things and change the world. Like but each of us can have an impact and can be important. We just have to figure out what our own personal capacity is. And then it's really important to develop a system to support our physiology so that our physiology can hold all of that. Because if your blood sugars are wildly unstable and you're massively B vitamin deficient and magnesium deficient, and you're not getting enough healthy fats in your diet, like
you're having autoimmune thyroid and you're vitamin D deficient, all of these things that become consequent to running oneself ragged. And if I may, I'm just going to add, people who we admire, who we think are doing it all, have teams. They are not individually
100%.
doing it all. They're doing what we see they're doing, and there's an entire community supporting them so that they can be face forward. And I think that we need to hear that time and time and time again, because it's not the impression we get. We get the impression growing up, especially, I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say, especially as women, of putting our best face forward and then achieving, as you say, if I do this, then I get that. If I get this degree, then I get that position. If I get this position, I can go up to that position. And that those stepping stones, if you will, those levels of achievement do exist. Of course, they're real. But what isn't real is that equation doesn't exist in life. If I do all the things, then I will get pregnant. Well, you might get pregnant, but you may not be healthfully pregnant. And if you're not healthfully pregnant, are you going to have a healthy baby and postpartum? So the takeaway that I'm getting from you here, Emily, is that preconception care is postpartum care, is perimenopausal care. So I want to give you back the mic here to elaborate on that a bit. Thank you for sharing in our conversation here at Health University. One of the ways in which we help people improve their fertility is through our 5-element fertility quiz. Please click on the link below at yourfertilityquiz.com and take this short quiz. You'll receive a free report that includes easy to implement ideas to improve your whole health and your fertile health. Now let's return to our topic in today's episode.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think we as women we have to always protect our more delicate physiology, right? We are on this lunar cycle versus our male counterparts. For a man, it's like Groundhog Day. Every day, same hormones. Testosterone in the morning, estrogen in the evening, repeat, right? And they have a certain level of resilience related to that. If you've ever done like the Whole30 diet alongside your male partner and they lost 20 pounds and nothing happened for you, like you understand this, right? We are different. And so, part of it for me and the thing that I would like to speak to all of these women that are trying to do it all is like, you can, but take yourself out of the male framework a little bit and understand that like you're going to have days where you're really productive and you're going to have days where you require more rest. And the most successful people in the world, you think of, I constantly wonder about Taylor Swift's recovery plan, because she has a huge team that's like helping her biohack and all these things. She has it, but I do know specifically about like LeBron James, right? So he is famous for playing, I think now he's up to like 20% more like average game hours than like most players ever play in a lifetime. Like they measure people's career by like how many game hours, right? And part of it is because he talks about how like his recovery is actually his most important job. So he spends massive amounts of time and investment resting and doing, stretching recovery and all of these things. And so he organizes his life around how he can recover so optimally that then he can go out and do all the big things. And I would argue that like mothering is one of the most performative endurance races we ever have done and will ever do, right? So, I mean, and our children don't want the tired version of us.
Right.
Like I'm at work all day and I'm, today, for example, I'm recording several interviews for several different things. And then I'm going to go home at 5 o'clock today. And like my kids, they've been waiting all day for me. And like, I also want to go to bed feeling like I had a really satisfying experience with them. I don't want to be like sorting through mail and like taking out the trash and distracted and like finishing up emails while I'm like sort of parenting them. I want to be like in parenting with them and enjoy this thing, right? And for the people here who have like struggled to get that, like I know that this is striking a chord for you because that is what we desire. Yeah. And so the best way to optimize that experience is to get extremely serious about your recovery and all the other time. That means being incredibly protective of your time, right? I think motherhood is a great filterer for who's really like a long-term person in my life and who's maybe just like a passing through person, because time is precious. It's a non-renewable resource, right? And if there's people in your life that are just kind of energy suckers, right? You got to clean that up. Boundaries, especially with like extended family, right? Like these things are energy suckers and are going to create burnout and are going to change the way that you can show up for your immediate family and your children. And then your relationship with your work, right? Whether you have your own business that makes multi-millions of dollars or you have a job that you've had for 10 years, like it doesn't matter. We have distorted relationships with our work and we have inflated ideas of like how important we are, right? We're very bad at using delegation, even if it's in place for us to use.
Yes.
Right. So it starts with valuing yourself and saying like, I can actually be a better person at what I do if I really recruit the help that I need and also have like good boundaries that I know that I'm done when I'm done. So like my clients, know that I'm available during these times and that unless it's an emergency, that like they'll hear from me the next day, right? And just being really good about those boundaries
and then really also redefining emergency or clarifying emergency because someone else's impression of an emergency may not be so. It might feel like an emergency at the time, but I love that. I love that you're telling us it's having these practices which become disciplines, which become lifestyles, which become the game changer that will allow us to have this full, rich life and be all of the things that make our lives meaningful and not at the sacrifice of any one of these things.
100%. And then, beyond that sort of relational and boundary sort of exercising that we need to do, it's the physiologic of like, what are your key things that you do to help repair your physiology? Like, are you getting enough antioxidants in so that you can handle the amount that you're interfacing with on a day-to-day basis? Are you getting enough sleep at night? Are you taking rest during your luteal phase? Are you moving your body enough to like discharge stress? Are you getting sunlight? Like these things are so non-negotiable with me that it's like kind of a joke in my social and family circles. Like it just is because, and there's probably also people listening who would maybe identify as being like a highly sensitive body, someone who just feels things, like gets more run down more easily than their counterparts,
is more sensitive sensitivities.
Yes.
More I would also add hydration, by the way. I think that we're a chronically dehydrated nation, which is ironic because we have so much, healthy water accessible to us. We also have unhealthy water accessible to us. So we need to be judicious about that.
Oh, I mean, I think I'm obsessed. I mean, about drinking clean water. I'm unapologetic about the fact that I'm always going to be ordering bottled water out of a glass bottle when I go to a restaurant. I used to think that was really bougie. And now I'm like, no, that's just really smart. And I also drink minimal to no alcohol because it just doesn't serve my greater purpose. Do I enjoy it? Yes. I'm a multi-passionate, like I love everything about life, right? But I also have, as I've grown, gone through, I have 4 children under the age of 12 now. So I've gone through this period of life. I have to really be extremely clear about what's most important to me. And it is not that important for me to have a glass of wine. It's more important for me to feel like super sharp and present for my kid when I wake up in the morning. And just one glass does take me down a little bit. Now, if I go to Italy and I'm out to dinner, will I have a glass of wine? Yes. And occasionally, yes. It's not like you don't have to be black and white,
Yeah.
but it's really just about thoroughly evaluating like what your values really are. Right. And are some of the things that you feel like you couldn't part with, are they actually just ways that you are like numbing or kind of coping?
Right.
Because you haven't set your life up in a way that actually feels good to you. You're just tolerating it.
Right. Yes, absolutely. And yeah, I would say that to your point, that glass of wine, with the evening meal may make it such that even in that evening, let alone the next morning, you wouldn't be feeling as optimal, but that in that evening, your children are not having a glass of wine with you. So it's something that you're doing apart from them.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, again, is it serving me and is it serving like who I want to be in my family? And in general, it's not, and like again, it's not about being perfect, but it's really about valuing myself, which, for children, like people don't always know this, but like even up until almost the, 6 months of life, like babies don't even know that they're separate from you.
Right.
They don't even know that you're a separate person. This is why it's like so anti-physiology to even separate from your infant before 12 weeks of age, like, or even before 6 months. Like the fact that we send women back to work is just a crime. And so like, remember that that's how it starts, that they feel so connected to you, and that connectedness and the need to see themselves through you is going to ebb and flow over their first 5-6 years of life, like up until they're really in that school age category at age 7. Like my 4-year-old, I was away for a pretty prolonged trip recently. And right now he needs to be so close to me, right? Like he needs to be physically touching me whenever I'm home. He's getting sort of angry if I'm not there, but it's like, there's a recalibration, and like, that's what he needs for safety. And so everything that I do is like also kind of what I'm doing for him, right? Because he's along for all of the ride. And it makes it really easy. And it's one of the reasons I love being a midwife, is that like in these transformative periods in our life, when we're becoming mothers, we get to choose to have a completely different set of rules. Like we get to throw out a lot of old stuff, and it's like, no one's going to question, or she became a mother and like everything changed for her.
I'm going to purport that that's exactly the definition of what mothering is like really taking the helm, if you will, of like, okay, this is now my priority, this person, these people, this family. And so, it is incumbent upon me to be the one who's creating the environment that is going to be home and safety and healthfulness. Yeah.
Yep. 100%. And like the amount, it really is true. Like the amount that you love yourself is really how you teach your children to love themselves. Like, especially with, I think there's such a thing too for daughters and mothers, and just the way that we talk about ourselves, even body image stuff. Most body image distortion comes from the mother-daughter relationship, or at least within the family, whether it's a grandmother, a father, or something. It's not coming from school. It's being seated in the home. So there's not really a more perfect time. And if you're on a fertility journey,
I will say, however, to the extent that they have exposure to social media, I think.
Yeah, it's making it worse. But I think that what we know from the research is that you get a certain amount of resilience from the family of origin, right? Absolutely. So like you can withstand that and see it through a lens of discernment. If you're raised in a house that's not available for that kind of, like, if there's just, I am so aware of like how I perceive and talk about my body in front of my daughter, right? And it also, like, I grew into a new person when I had a baby, right? Because like your body is not yours anymore, right? So it's just, it shouldn't feel overwhelming. It should feel like a really positive call to action. That during this journey, whether you're in a fertility journey or you're pregnant or postpartum, that it's such a beautiful time. And it's a time when our brain also is experiencing massive chemical changes that actually allow us to be really malleable
Mhm.
and allow us to change the way that we do things. And it makes us so attuned to our baby
Mhm.
that we can really easily make decisions through the filter of like, what's best for this person,
Yes.
right? Which may be radically different from the system that you were in before.
Absolutely. In fact, I would say undoubtedly for the radically
Yes.
different from the system that most of us were in before, unless we
Yeah.
were born into and grew up in the red tent to circle back.
Totally. I know. In another lifetime, that's my dream for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or that, or Ina May Gaskin's farm in Tennessee, were like the dreams.
Mhm.
But I think, and I was speaking to someone else earlier today, and we were talking about, toxins. And this is just something that's been on my mind because I just got back from Europe, and I was just, I've just been so astounded at like the level of complacency that we have here, especially on a government level around like
Yeah.
what's in our food and our water. And I asked
In our
the
personal
person I was
care
speaking to,
products,
like,
in our oral
everything,
healthcare products. Mhm.
everything. And like with no complete abandon that we feed this stuff to children.
Mhm.
And I said to this colleague of mine, like, man, like, do you think it's ever like our government's ever going to really like get hip to what's going on in the rest of the world? And are we ever going to be as good as our European counterparts in terms of just caring about like what's even allowed into the system? And he was like, well, if you think about like the things where we've made big change, like smoking, that didn't come from the government, that came from the people.
They
The
always have.
people rose up and said, like, no more.
Yep.
Like, this is not okay.
Yep.
And I think that no one is better positioned than a mother or someone becoming a mother than to say, like, no more, this is not okay. Like,
Mhm.
it is not okay that so many women are suffering with this. It is not okay that there's so many incidences of early onset cancers now. And, the list goes on. And we really need to be the change that we want to see.
Yep.
We need to buy based on our values and behave based on our values, even as commodities in the commercial market. Like all of you have value, and all of you are, participate in, in our society in a working way. And
Yeah.
how you engage with that and what boundaries you set right up front. Like, don't go work for a company that doesn't value time off. Don't go work for a company that doesn't have paid paternal leave, right? Even if it's not going to affect you, that's their value, right? So we need to like really vote with our values in the way that we engage with life all the time. And I do think that in small ways, grassroots ways, like people listening to this podcast and a million other podcasts, that we will make incremental change.
I absolutely agree. And really, it gives me hope that the ship has begun to right itself, which is to say, we have begun to right ourselves and are taking both agency and responsibility over our own actions to the best we can. As again, we're human beings, and we're not perfect. We are by nature imperfect, but we just do the best we can each day. And every single shift, whether it's just taking out some conventional grown plants or vegetables, whether it's choosing grass-fed, free range, wild caught, etc., whether it's making sure that you're having only good, clean water. Those things, they're doable each day to some degree, but they're making exponential changes in our own health, in our fertile health, in our family's health, and in our communities. It literally is that ripple effect. And then,
Yeah.
yes, we rise up as communities, which then become whatever, cities, counties, states, countries, and all of that. And then the change appears to have happened with some bill that gets signed with a
Yep.
ceremony.
Listen, if nobody's buying the Pringles and the Cheetos, they will go out of business. Like, they will not
Exactly.
make the product anymore, right?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
and women in this age group, we have the biggest buying power actually of any demographic. And
Mhm.
so, just don't question your values. Don't
Yeah.
question your desires to like see in a tangible way, like your values in play. Sometimes we as women can be very codependent and kind of like, yeah, that's fine if your friend suggests a restaurant that's maybe not in alignment with you, or, oh yeah, I'll just have a glass of wine because everybody's drinking. Like, we tend to discharge our own actual true desires.
Mhm.
And that would probably be the most important thing right, to stay connected to as you go into this journey of motherhood. And there's so much thrown at you all the time, is like, run it through your filter, stay grounded to your values. And that's probably the best way to avoid burnout.
This has been, I have loved this conversation. And what I will add one thing to the to the listening conversation, and that is we're using the term motherhood. We're using, because this podcast is focused on fertility and one's fertile health, but this is appropriate as human beings. It is the maternal or mothering instinct and aspect in each of us, male or female, that we're asking and inviting you to draw upon, so that you are bringing to this life your best self and making your best contribution, because we all need your best contribution. So Emily,
Amen.
I can't wait to have you back, because I could go on and on and on, but I want to respect your time. I want to respect the viewers' time. And I will say at this point, we're just going to wrap it here, because that was a beautifully profound closing statement you made. So thank you once again for your time. Really appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Susan. It was great to be here.
Thank you. And we close our Health University episodes with the phrase "class dismissed." So go out and have a great
Love
day.
it.